Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited because I got a super interesting young guy who's not only made it in real estate, but he's also made it in the software world, starting some software companies. I've got Anton Ivanov on with me today, and dude, I really appreciate you getting on, and I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah, likewise, Mario. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to share a little bit about our software platforms and real estate with your listeners today.
Cool. And I want everybody to know that we're going to dive into Anton's, entrepreneurship story, kind of how he built these companies and, why he did it and things like that. So regardless of what industry you're in, I think you're going to get a ton of value out of this. So stick around till the end. So Anton, can you just quickly give a heads up on how you got into business and real estate real quick? Because I think that's important for everybody to understand where you came from.
Sure. So I grew up in San Diego, went to high school there. And then right after high school, pretty much when I was about 18, 19, I actually joined the US Navy, went active duty, and was stationed in Japan for most of my tour for like 4 or 5 years over there. And I first got into real estate under, I would say, some unfortunate circumstances. My parents passed away when I was pretty young. It was kind of unexpected. And they happened to own a condo over there in California, Southern California, where they live. So here I am. I'm, like early 20s. I don't know anything about real estate. I was just getting into, kind of finance and personal finance, starting your budget, kind of the basics. And I got stuck with this condo that I was pretty much forced to manage remotely because I wasn't even living there at the time. I was in Japan. So I thought about selling it because I was just a bit overwhelmed, to be honest. But I kept it. I'm kind of glad I did. And it basically forced me to becoming a long distance landlord pretty early in life without me actually buying this property. And that kind of sparked my interest in real estate. It wasn't a lot of cash flow. Again, just a single property in Southern California. Residential market is not known for its high cash flow. So it wasn't a lot, but it was like a few $100s a month. And I was like, hey, this is pretty good passive income. The property is appreciating in value. And that kind of what got me interested in real estate, from then on, even though it didn't really cross my horizon, to be honest, back then. So when I moved back to California, got out of the Navy, kind of transitioned to a more normal job or normal lifestyle, if you will. That's when me and my wife really looked at our financial goals, what we wanted to accomplish. We knew we didn't want to work for, 30, 40 years, like a 9 to 5 lifestyle. That definitely wasn't for us. So we honed in on real estate pretty early on. We said, yeah, let's start building our portfolio, start buying more properties. And over the course of, I would say it was about 5 or 6 years, we built up our portfolio to 40 rental units in California, Atlanta, and mostly in Missouri, around Kansas City area over there with kind of larger multifamily properties. So been going great since then. And, honestly, real estate opened up a lot of avenues for us in terms of financial freedom and passive income, and actually led me to starting both of the software platforms that I now run.
It's interesting because real estate and technology, for whatever reason, feel so, on the opposite ends of the spectrum. A lot of the real estate people you meet are like, yeah, they're just kind of still old school. It's an industry that hasn't kept up, especially on the commercial real estate side, hasn't kept up with technology. And now you're starting to see more and more technology coming into the space. And it's cool because the younger people who are in the space embrace it. The older folks, some of them, not all, but some of them are a little bit slower to embrace. And so it's just kind of like oil and water a little bit. And it's neat to see that transition. So, and I'm not picking on the older folks that are slow to pick it up. My business partner slash dad is one of them. He's like, hey, I know what I'm doing. I don't need technology. But then I'm like, yeah, but dad, look at this. Look at how much more effective we are when we utilize this. So it's cool to see. What had you start Deal Check and Rentcast?
Yeah, so I'll actually touch base. I 100% agree with what you said. We had, I see that even now our platforms are really popular, but we see that all the time. It's just kind of a bit old school, I call it, old school industry. A lot of people kind of have their ways of doing things, especially in the investment side of real estate. You know, there's a lot of platforms like Zillow and all that stuff for home buyers that saw pretty good adoption over the last decade or so. But yeah, real estate investing, property tech has been a bit slow, I would say, but it's catching on. So, um, you know, how Deal Check started. So that's the first kind of our major platform that I run and that I started. It's a property analysis platform for real estate investors to analyze multifamily properties, commercial properties, rentals, flips, wholesale. So kind of a well-rounded platform. And the way that started, it was kind of a funny story, I guess. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't like, you know, say, hey, I'm going to go and start a software company. I was actually investing in real estate myself. You know, this was back when we were aggressively buying our properties, doing a lot of driving around, doing a lot of traveling because we did long distance investing. So I would fly out, you know, see houses in other states. And I was like, hey, it'd be cool if I had an app on my phone that I can quickly run my cash flow projections, you know, my acquisition financing scenarios, just real quick to even see if this deal is going to work. And I looked around to see what was on the market back then. This was around 2015, so it was like, you know, mobile phones were around for a little bit, but not like too long. And the apps on there were, I would say, a little cringy. I'm not going to pick on any of them, but it was just like I pulled it up. It was like some rental calculator. I mean, I'm sure somebody spent a lot of time on it, but I was like, man, there's got to be something better. And I didn't find it. Back then, it was like Excel spreadsheets. I think Bigger Pockets had like a few basic calculators that they offered, and it was kind of about it. I actually was working as a software engineer. That was my career after leaving the active duty military service. And I was like, you know what? Let me just put something together. I had some, you know, I'm kind of like a hustler, I guess. You know, I don't like watching TV sitting around. So I spent some weekends, some, you know, evenings putting together this app. It was a mobile app, and didn't really expect it to get big. I didn't do market testing. It was probably like everything that they teach you not to do in business school. It was like I spent a lot of time on this product that I had no clue if it will work. But so I launched it, you know, went through that process, and then shared it with a few of my friends, like colleagues, some other investors I knew, and they loved it actually. And it wasn't that good back then. I'll be the first to admit it. You know, it was just one guy working on it. It was okay, but it was probably better than most of the apps out there because, you know, coming from an investor background, I was actually using it every day. So I would see, hey, it'd be cool if it did this. It'd be cool if it did that. So long story short, you know, I started sharing it. People started really kind of responding well to it. And I just kept adding more features to it. And then a couple of years later, you know, it took a while for me to kind of find the time and to really start growing it. But around 2017, 18, that's when it really started picking up. It, you know, was like if you search for real estate investing or real estate calculator on the App Store, it was like number 1 or 2. It was getting a lot of reviews. So I was like, hey, there's something to this. You know, I should kind of spend more time on this. And that's when I kind of hired a few folks. We expanded our team. We really picked up our marketing, launched a web version of because it was a beginning just a mobile app, right? So, and then it just grew organically from there. So, and today, Deal Check is probably one of the most popular property analysis platforms in North America. I'm happy to say. I think we got close to 300,000 active users at this point.
Jeez.
It's super popular, and you know, we do have it. It is, I would say, focused, you know, especially initially was focused more on the residential market, but especially recently we've added a lot of commercial analysis tools and giving you the option to add rent rolls and kind of, you know, financing, like commercial financing with balloon payments and stuff like that. So really just expanding it on all branches, but keeping it very focused on property analysis, you know, helping you you know, kind of run all the properties, compare them against your criteria, create reports, look at rental comps, look at sales comps, you know, create presentations for your lenders or partners or clients all in one platform. So we've kept the focus very narrow and listened to a lot of customer feedback over the years, starting back when I was just showing it to friends and family basically. And I think that really allowed us to kind of build a product that is very useful, that people actually use every day. So it's not just like, hey, it looks cool,
Yeah.
the website looks nice. I just feel like there is some, kind of startups that almost embrace like their marketing is their product.
Yeah.
They take on a lot of money. They start doing ads, like crazy promos. Next thing you know, they're like, on some monster truck, and it's just kind of
So
all over
true.
the place. Yeah, and then you go and you start using their platform, and it's hard to figure out what it's for, or
It sucks.
it's just a bit all over the place, right? Whereas with Deal Check, we really focused on kind of what is the core value proposition of this platform, and that is property analysis. That is, how can we allow you to analyze a multifamily property, a commercial property, a mobile park in literally a few minutes, if not under a minute, and how can you see rental comps, sales comps, create reports, like
So,
run different scenarios all in one place.
so Anton, this sounds like a pretty, advanced software, and you just went through a bunch of really good nuggets that I think we need to unpack. Okay.
All right.
Your entrepreneurial story is awesome, because you didn't start out with like, everything on your plate. You were in the Navy. You obviously, had a very unfortunate situation, which I'm sorry to hear about, in your family early on. And you took, what you had, and you made it into both an investment strategy with the homes, and then also in apartments, and then also you saw a need in the marketplace just for yourself, and you turn into this product. And it's funny because one of the things that you said was probably one of the most simple, but stood out the most. You said, I was using it every day. And you built the product for yourself to use because you actually needed it and there was demand in the marketplace. And I think you're right. A lot of people start businesses and just go crazy on the marketing, raise all this money, sell a bunch of blue sky, and and just keep trying to push their valuation higher and not actually focus on the product and making it better for the user, where you kind of went about it the other way. So I'm just going to use this, make it better, keep tweaking it, let my friends and family use it. And as other people caught on, it took off. So I got to tell you, I respect you a lot for that. And it's not easy to to switch from real estate investing to software from standpoint of making it a business, because every business takes a lot of commitment and a lot of work. So super cool. Is in just in like real basic terms, what is Rentcast with Deal Check? Is Rentcast
Sure.
What is Rentcast real quick?
So Rentcast is our second platform that is pretty recent. We just launched it in the last year, and that one focuses more on rental market analysis, so helping you figure out what could be the market rents for your properties. We've basically built an algorithm that scans all the rental listings in North America for residential, multifamily, and apartment complexes. And then with just one click of a button, you can get a rent estimate for your area for that type of property. So we focused on that, helping people find market rents for properties, and also analyze market trends, like what have been the historical rental moves in this market for 1 bedroom, 2 bathroom, whatever, different property types. And then on top of that, we're working on expanding our kind of portfolio tracking, and we call it optimization tips. So not so much like tenant management and property management aspects, which I feel like there's a lot of software for that does a pretty good job. We're more on, how can we help you maximize your rent and minimize your vacancies for your portfolio by allowing you to lease your properties at close to market rents or a little under, so they're not sitting on the market, but at the same time you're not losing kind of money due to being severely under market. So we're kind of still expanding that tool set,
Cool.
but that's what Rentcast is kind of more focused after purchase, where Deal Check is more for property analysis prior to.
So Anton, what's kind of a big learn or something that you had to go through with the software businesses that maybe other entrepreneurs could learn from, maybe some challenges that you had that you got through, or something that you didn't know that you were going to have to deal with that you did that maybe other people might deal with in their businesses?
Sure. Well, I'll mention a couple things. The first one, actually piggyback on what you said, Mario, earlier about starting a business in an area that you're intimately familiar with. I think a lot of maybe potential entrepreneurs or just folks that are looking to start a business, they may listen to this episode, or they may just see somebody be successful in an industry, and they'll be like, hey, maybe I can do something like that, or maybe I want to do this because I heard my friend so and so is doing that. But they themselves have potentially no knowledge of that industry at all. So I think, if I had to give like one piece of advice for just, hey, what I get a lot of people ask me, what type of business should I start? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I'm a big believer in starting a business or building a product in an industry that you're very familiar with. And the reason for this is because you're in the best, in my opinion, position to see the pain points, or the needs, or the unmet kind of potential that people in that industry have. So in my example, it was like you said, I was myself an investor. I was driving around. I wanted a property analysis platform, and I didn't see one. Or I tried out the existing solutions, and I could tell you like, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what could be better. I think you kind of already have a lot of stuff stacked against you when you're an entrepreneur, when you're starting a business, because it is hard. I'm never going to downplay the amount of hard work that it takes. So you want to kind of stack a little more cards in your favor. And I think starting a business or just looking for problems in the market, the area just that you're familiar with, it could be an industry that you work in full time. It could be, for example, like me in real estate investing, which I was doing on the side, but still a lot. But try to focus on an industry that you know a lot about, that you're working every day, and that you can identify problems much easier. So that was definitely, I would say, I mean, I don't know if I did that consciously, in my opinion. For me, just again,
Yeah,
I think it was kind of random what
it
happened, in my
worked.
opinion, right? Yeah, it worked. But kind of looking back, I know that played a big role, because had I just said, you know what, I'm going to get into, I don't know, like a food delivery or something, some random business that I really, I knew about, but I really didn't know much about, the intricacies of how it works. I don't think I would have been as successful. And I just see a lot of people just look at shiny things, so to speak, other people being successful, and they're not saying they can't be successful. Again, I don't want to ever tell a person like, you're setting yourself up for failure, because I believe that everybody can be successful in anything, but I just think you're stacking yourself, your kind of success factors much higher if you focus on the industry that you know well.
Yeah, you got an edge, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
you you know something already, you're in tune with it, so you can actually make it better. And yeah, people are often looking for, a business to start, but they don't start with what they already know. And I think that's really good advice. You had talked about, you did long distance investing,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that a lot of people are afraid to do. On the
Yeah, I was too at
commercial,
the beginning.
yeah, the commercial side, you kind of, if the property's large enough to support an on-site manager or something like that, it makes it a lot easier. But if you're doing duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, small multi-family, or even single families, that's pretty hard to manage. Are you, I know you said you're in Atlanta, you're in Missouri, you're in California, and you live in New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
So
And I don't live near any of our properties at this
yeah,
point.
are you using third-party management companies for those, or are you managing them yourself, or how are you set up in that?
No, and this kind of, I'll wrap this up for you for business and for real estate. Another kind of piece of advice, and I think that's very important, is I think both real estate and running your own business are, endeavors that rely on other people, and they rely on you being able to build a network, find professionals to help you, and then kind of steer them in the right direction, almost like a CEO of your company. So for our rental portfolio, it is all managed professionally by third-party companies. And it has been from the beginning. Even when we first started investing in San Diego, actually, when we actually bought a few of our first properties between me and my wife, we lived near them, but I never managed them myself, and I would never have, because we were preparing ourselves for a situation where we're either not living in San Diego, or frankly, I just didn't want to deal with that. I don't want to, wake up and respond to maintenance requests or screen tenants or that sort of thing. If there's a big issue that comes up that I have to kind of work through, that's one thing. But we prepared our portfolio and all of our setup, and including now DealCheck and Rentcast, our businesses, to work essentially without us as much as possible. So I think when you're looking at real estate investing, especially commercial and especially out of state, it's absolutely critical to first, actually, I would say, build a team. When we first started investing in Missouri, that's our latest market that we kind of have the largest concentration of our multifamily right now. I flew out there, and over the course of 6 months, I was there a few times, and I found property management companies, brokers, insurance agents, contractors, rehab crews. I set all that up, and it took a while. I think it was, again, 6 or 8 months before I actually started looking at properties, because I wanted to understand the market and be there a few times, and at the same time find people to work in. And this were mostly coming from referrals and talking to other local investors, seeing who they use for property management or other professionals, meeting them in person, having like a little interview with them, basically.
Sure.
Here's my goals, here's how I like to run my portfolio. And then just judging it, whether we're going to jive good with them, or maybe
Or not.
just or not. Yeah, because there's different, even in property management companies, I've met companies, they manage like high-rise apartments, they have thousands of units, and I was just on a little smaller scale. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to be like a little tiny fish for them. They might not spend a lot of time on my portfolio, which is understandable.
Sure.
Or at the same time, maybe you are buying high-rise apartment complexes and large office spaces, or mobile parks, and you don't want a property manager that like never managed one of those properties before. So I went through the process of establishing our team, kind of establishing good relationship with them too. Not just, I feel like some investors, when they pick property managers, it's almost like very transactional, right? Like they yeah, here's a property, you manage it, what's your fee? Like, kind of like, and we're done. And in my case, I didn't do that. I actually met the owner. I met our actual agents, our leasing agents, our property agents, the people who are going to be doing this day to day. I took them out to lunch. We basically had, some sort of relationship where we talked about it, we understood each other, and then we followed that up with phone calls. I, for example, do monthly. It used to be sometimes a little more frequent, but now it's just monthly phone calls with all of my property managers. We just talk about our portfolio in general. Are there any issues, anything we can do to improve? And I almost look at my role as the CEO of our real estate portfolio, just like
You are.
I'm the CEO of DealCheck and Rentcast. I don't want to be micromanaging every process, every little thing that happens with our properties, nor do I think you should, especially if you're a, commercial investor with a large portfolio. I just think it's, depending on how many units you have, you get to that territory where that's your full-time job.
Yeah.
And maybe you like that. I personally do not. So I always wanted to find people, and kind of train them if needed, or at least, reach an understanding with them to where they're managing my portfolio in the way that I would manage it myself.
How have you done that in your software companies? Because I agree with you. You need to be able to get out of the business and have it not own you, right? So a lot of people own real estate, own businesses, and it owns them. Maybe some thoughts on setting up a company to where when you're starting it, you're not going to be owned by it. Because you have employees or contracted developers, or what's your setup for your software companies?
So we have both for DealCheck and Rentcast. We have both full-time employees, as well as we hire some contracting, for off things, or if we do a marketing campaign that just needs a little more attention. But it was definitely very, I would say that was one of the challenges for me back a few years ago, because at the beginning it was just me. I literally was the one that build the first deal check mobile app. I did all the marketing. I did everything. Accounting, we're talking legal, and then,
Legal. That's
well,
scary.
yeah, you got to
Of
form an
course.
LLC. You have to, it's
Yeah.
just
Of
all this myriad of things that you may not
course.
think about when you're first starting a business. And I was like, I did get to a point where, I looked hard at what we're doing, where I wanted to be. And I said, there's no way one person, can do this. There's no way I can do this by myself. So what I did is I started gradually focusing on, one area or one aspect of the business at a time. And I would either outsource it or hire somebody to basically replace me in that area. So for example, some things were easier than others, like accounting and legal. You can go find an attorney and they basically handle all the legal stuff for you. You can find a CPA, they start doing all of that. At the beginning, I didn't have that. So some things are easier. You find a good professional, again, establish a relationship with them, tell them how you want things done, and then just turn it over to them. It's money well spent because it frees up your time. And eventually with DealCheck and Rentcast being software platforms, I had to get more developers. And that was where I had harder time because I'm a little critical of other people. I'll admit it. If they're listening to it, they'll probably know, what I'm talking about. So I'm a little hard on people as far as like reviewing, their code in this case, like the software that they write, because I'm a software developer myself, and I'd be like, hey, maybe I can do that thing better. I think you got to find a balance, right? It's first of all, sometimes there's not even a right way. There's like the way you like to do things, and then there's an equally good way that you may not do, but other people do. And I remember I had to like sit down and mentally be like, you know what, this works just as well. This is not how I would do it, but I shouldn't just go in and berate this person or criticize them because they've solved the same problem just a different way, right? So it's a little shift in mentality, and I think different people are, better or worse at this. I would say I was
I
probably on the
suck at
worst
that.
side. Oh yeah, me too. I
I'm
was,
like,
it
I
took
have
me a
a real
while.
problem with that. I've caught myself and over the years had to teach myself that I need to just stay out of it because
Right.
now I actually notice that when I get involved, it's like bowling ball in a china cabinet or
Yeah.
whatever that term is, because they're talking, they're communicating. I jump in the middle and throw in an idea or try and change the course of things, and it just makes problems. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't even know what I was talking about. I thought I knew what I was talking about, but they're already beyond where I'm at. And so I think what you're saying is super good advice for all entrepreneurs. You got to learn how to let go and let people do what they're good at.
Yeah, I think if you empower people, if nobody wants to be like have another person over their shoulder 24/7. And now, by the way, this goes to property management, for example, too, because I see a lot of investors do the same thing. They'll be micromanaging their property manager, like who's the tenant you're putting in? What's the lease? What are the terms? How much did you pay that handyman for fixing the toilet? Did you ask another handyman for how much it was? You know what I'm saying? Like I've met investors who are like super hands-on with their property, and maybe at the beginning, if you're a new investor, you just bought a property, I can see, or if you're working with a new property manager or an employee, maybe that gives you a little confidence in them. But eventually you have to, like you said, you have to kind of step back a little bit. You have to let people kind of shine and prove their worth and do their work that you're paying them for, without you micromanaging them. If there's something grossly wrong or you're just super unhappy, or uh, you think they badly messed up, I would bring it up to them in like a constructive way, right? But if they're doing their job, it's getting done pretty well. Again, maybe not exactly how you would do it, but it's getting done. I think it is best to just let them do it. If you want to give them suggestions or feedback, you're more than welcome to, but don't be like over their shoulder, telling them what to do. So I definitely had to learn, just like you did, with with our deal check and rentcast folks that work, to kind of step back, be more receptive to other ideas. Still you're kind of the captain of the ship, so you're still responsible for steering it. But right, but you shouldn't, in my opinion, be like telling every single person what to do.
Micromanaging. Yeah.
Exactly. No, just step back, make sure you're going in the right course, overall, but let other people, do the work.
What did you get from the Navy that you've been able to apply to business?
Funny story I tell. The Navy mostly taught me what I don't like, what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
than what it did. And I have mad respect for all service members. Obviously, I served. I have a lot of family and friends that did. But you know, the Navy's and all military in general, it's a very rigid environment. It's kind of like somebody's telling you what to do, or you have you know, a set of orders or a set of guidelines that you follow. And it works in the military because that structure is absolutely needed. In business, in real estate, not so much. I actually think you need like the 100% opposite. So I remember back, you know, when I first joined, and I was a different person back then. I didn't have as much direction and goals and self-discipline. So it definitely helped me in that regard. I think I did a lot of growing up in the Navy. You know, I didn't necessarily like enjoy the full experience, and I didn't obviously stay and kind of retire for the full 20 years. But nothing against the folks that do. You know, if you like a
Sure.
rigid environment, if you're good kind of under pressure, you like to do, you know, certain things based on orders or based on guidelines, that's a perfect environment.
Sure.
For me, I kind of realized, hey, I need a little more space. I have a lot of kind of creativity and ideas and just kind of self-starting, you know, I guess factors or qualities of me that the Navy was hindering a little bit. And then when I got out, that's when I could really get into, you know, all these different projects and ideas like real estate and then my software businesses, and kind of really expand from there. But I don't know, you know, if I didn't join the Navy, I don't know if I would have done kind of the growing up and the, uh, you know, kind of a lot of thinking and self-reflection that I did during those years that would have, I think, prepared me for what I did later in life.
It probably taught you discipline.
It absolutely did.
Like,
Oh yeah.
like,
When I was a teenager, I was like playing a lot of video games and I didn't really care. You know, it was so absolutely discipline and hard work, you know, sacrifice and those qualities for sure I know I applied in business because especially and real estate for the most part, it's always very difficult getting started. You know, buying your first property, uh, I think is like 10 times, if not more difficult than buying your second or third or even fourth or fifth. Same with the business. Launching your first product or getting your first customer is infinitely more challenging than getting your 100th, 1,000th, or you know, like a millionth customer.
yeah.
And those first few years with real estate or business, they're tough. You know, you're grinding. You're spending a lot of time, uh, you know, away from something else you could be doing, your family, your friends, your favorite activities. You're potentially pumping a lot of money, you know, especially with real estate, into these endeavors, into these projects, or your time and effort and money into your business, but you're not getting much in return. You know, with Deal Check and Rentcast, they're super profitable now, but when they, for the first several years, you know, when I was working it just by myself, there was very little profit. You know, if I had to do like what was my hourly wage, it was probably less than minimum wage, to be honest. And you know, Mario, from real estate, same thing. You can go on your first deal. Again, depends on the deal. You know, when I was first buying, we were buying single family. You know, you're putting in, you know, tens of thousands of dollars in down payment, rehab capital. You may get a few hundred a month in cash flow. That were just, you know, after financing and everything said and done. Uh, not like super, you know, numbers to get excited about, right? You're like, man, I just spent all this money, all this time, and I'm getting like $200, $300 a month in cash flow. So those are hard times, and but you do have